But if you're trying to avoid salt, by all means, you can skip it all together and maybe use a little bit more of we're also going to put some maple syrup in here for flavor. You can put a little bit of something else in here to just beef up the flavor. You don't have to have the soy, it just adds another dimension. Happens to go really well with mushrooms. And again, all these ingredients, what we're trying to do is build up to mimicking what would be a beef burger.
Brigid, what are the benefits of a plant-based diet, the health benefits?
The health benefits are endless. Plant-based diet is full of antioxidants that are cancer fighting, lower in fat. Really, it's as much about what it's doing for you and the environment also, but it's really that it's much lower in fat. Fruits and vegetables are packed with all kinds of vitamins that we need to get in our bodies, and the American diet, the typical American diet, doesn't provide even a fraction of what we need in a week for plants to keep us healthy. It keeps your blood pressure, plants keep your blood pressure down. They really just help every process in your body function better. They can improve your eyesight, they can improve your skin, all kinds of things that animal products can't do for you. But one of the main reasons people are switching to plant-based, in addition to, I think, heart disease, which is exacerbated, sometimes causes and in other cases exacerbates, is exacerbated with meat products. It's as much for the environment, and the population is exploding in the US. We use about 80% of our water to either goes directly to animals that we're going to eat, or goes to raising the food that they're going to eat before we consume the animal. And I think that the statistic is something like if you're raising meat, your return on your investment is about 30%, and when you grow plants, it's 100%. For the same acreage I'm talking about, if you're in resources. So if you can't really see here, but I'm now able to smush these mushrooms a little bit in between my fingers, which means they're getting almost to the state that we want them to be in. And once they are softened up entirely, we're going to add that soy sauce and the balsamic and a little bit of maple syrup into this mixture. And then,
and again, Brigid, somebody could leave the maple syrup out as well if you don't like sweet.
If they don't like sweet, just be careful. You could, you could put honey in there if you want instead of maple syrup, if you prefer something else. Just be careful that you don't eliminate everything, because you're going to lose a lot of the flavor and you're going to end up with something that's very bland. So if you're, there are many ways to make something interesting to eat. If you're going to get rid of the sweet, I say, add something spicy, get something that makes your taste buds salivate and make you interested in actually consuming the meal, particularly if you're trying something new like a plant-based item that you wouldn't normally have, and that some people might even feel like at first they're being punished or forced into something healthy unwillingly. But there are just so many wonderful substitutes that you can make for animal products, meat products, dairy products. We're using some dairy tonight, but particularly animal meat products coming from animals. So this is kind of getting to a point where I like it. It's softened up a bit, and I'm going to go ahead. I've already pre-measured the soy and the maple syrup and the balsamic into here. I'm going to pour it in with the mushroom mixture. I'm going to turn the heat down a little bit. So I just add some. And while that's happening and cooking a little bit more and kind of melding those flavors together, what I'm going to do is prepare the garlic. We're going to put a couple of cloves of garlic in here. When it comes to things like garlic and other seasonings, I'm all for more is more and more is better. So if it calls for 1 clove, I'm gonna put 2. If it calls for 2, I'm gonna put 3. Because I like a lot of flavor in my food, and I think it is important to have flavors in your food. Like I said, to create the interest in your mouth before you eat things. It helps your digestion that way, and just makes the meal more enjoyable and more flavor that you get into it. If you're not eating garlic, you can again feel free to skip the garlic. There's no rules, and there should never be any hard and fast rules when you're cooking in your own kitchen, because it's your diet, it's your health, it's your taste buds that are kind of dictating what's happening. So,
Brigid, does a plant-based diet, would that afford an athlete enough proper, adequate nutrition?
yes, and there are plenty of athletes out there that that one wouldn't imagine are plant-based. It's a few years back now, but Mr. Universe was plant-based. There's I think Venus Williams is now plant-based. There are a lot of soccer players, football players that are plant-based, and mainly it's because for athletes, eating animal products, particularly flesh of animals, inflames your arteries, and you can't pump as much blood through, then oxygenate your blood as much. If you're eating animal products, it takes you quite a while to recover from the inflammation from animal products. So there are actually a lot of athletic teams and athletes that choose to be, even if they're not vegetarians, that choose to be plant-based, at least in the day leading up to a athletic performance, or a couple of days before it, so that they can make sure that they don't have inflammation in their body. Anyway, so we have that ready to go here. I'm going to show you it's quite soupy and slides around now, because the mushrooms have done their job and released their liquid with a little help from the salt. And the next thing that we're going to do, if I'm not mistaken, is we're going to add some garlic in there, and we're going to add paprika. Again, the paprika is optional. It gives it, I'm using smoked paprika. It just gives it another layer of flavor and depth to it. If you don't have paprika or you don't like paprika, feel free not to add it. But again, it's just layering flavor over flavor so that you get a more satisfying end product. So I'm going to put the garlic in there, and I'm going to turn the heat down again a little bit, because we don't want the garlic really cooking all the way through, and we definitely don't want it frying or burning. And I'm going to put a half a teaspoon of paprika in here, if I can find a half a teaspoon. If I can't, I'm going to use a quarter of a teaspoon twice. Gets me to the same place. Sprinkle that in there. Stir that in. I'm going to let that cool a little bit. Actually turn the heat off with that. Just a little break from that noise. So the recipe calls for 2 cups of cooked rice. I have my cooked rice here. Again, the white rice is in the interest of saving time. For this to be as much closer to a meatier product and result, I would recommend, if you ever have the time, to try the recipe with brown rice. The whole process is the same. It's just substituting a different type of rice. This is the part where, if you don't have a food processor, you can mix this with your hands. You're going to get a little bit chunkier of an end result. We're going to add to the food processor the rice, the mushroom mixture, some panko breadcrumbs, some walnuts, and a couple of other things, and pulse them together until they create kind of a sticky end product. You can do the same thing with your hands, only I would advise that right now I know I'm going to have the benefit of the food processor helping me with my walnuts to get them down to bite-sized pieces. If I were doing this with my hands, which I have done, you would just want to take a knife and chop the walnuts so that they're much smaller. You don't want to get a big giant chunk of walnut cracking in your teeth when you're trying to eat a burger, and it's going to give you a bad sense of ground meat, not a good sense of it. So we're trying to create something that is sophisticated and mimics the real thing. So I'm going to get a measuring cup. Just going to take 2 scoops of my rice, put them in here. Then I'm going to put the mushrooms in there. And I'm going to add the walnuts. I will add a half, the recipe calls for a cup of panko. I'm gonna put a half a cup in there now and a half a cup after I've pulsed it together, and that's just to create a little bit more depth of texture. You can use regular breadcrumbs. I wouldn't use Italian because you've got all those spices in there that are gonna interfere with the end product. If I could encourage you not to do a substitute somewhere, it would be here. Panko breadcrumbs are available in any store, any grocery store easily. They're not really more expensive than regular breadcrumbs, and they're fluffier, and they just absorb more liquid, and they'll hold your end product together much more tightly than a finer grind of traditional breadcrumb. So if you only have traditional breadcrumbs available to you, feel free to use them. But again, I would encourage you not to skip the panko at this point. I'm going to let this sitting here over here in this Cuisinart cool a little bit while I mix my eggs. Again, you have the option of using flax eggs, and I have made the recipe both ways. You can do it either way. But we're going to use eggs tonight because they are a little bit more affordable and readily available. Most people have some eggs lying around in their fridge. I'm just going to whisk these up a little bit. I tend to like with my eggs to whisk with a fork. If you have a whisk, feel free to use a whisk. I find that it's less messy and easier to control with a fork. And the reason why I'm letting some of this stuff cool down in that mixer is I don't want the egg to cook when it hits those mushrooms that have been cooking because they were quite warm. You don't have that problem if you're using flax egg because it doesn't cook right away. But you don't want to have clumps of cooked egg in your mixture in the end. So how are we doing on time, ladies? I think we probably are at the point where we might want to get our
26.
Yeah, we might want to get our French fries in the oven shortly, but let's first busy this up. I'm going to get some of this debris out of the way. I have a tray back here ready, lined with parchment, so that when we form the burgers, we have something to rest them on. As I said, if you have more time and you're someone that starts cooking, getting ready for your dinner at 4:30, then you could rest these burgers after they're formed in the fridge for an hour, and it would really help them stick together a bit more. You can even freeze them and cook them later, which I've done many times, is just form the patties, put them in the freezer, and take them out when I want them. It does make 8 of them, so if you're only cooking for a family of 4, you're gonna have 4 left over. If you're cooking for 2 people, you're gonna have 6 left over. It's just a great thing to, you're gonna go through all this effort to have the extras available to you to eat at a later date. If you're going to form them and leave them in your fridge, you can do that too, but I would recommend that you cook them in 3 to 4 days. Rice is not something that you want sticking around in your fridge for very long. It can grow bacteria that's not very healthy for you. Again, I'm going to pulse this. I'm not going to turn it on and let it kind of go on its own and create a mess. Take a peek at it and see how it's doing.
Brigid, I know someone who was on a plant-based diet who complained about gaining weight. What would have caused that for her?
I will say that particularly if you go vegan, a lot of people don't actually, plant-based diet isn't healthier than a traditional diet if you're gonna fill it with processed foods, right? So people go and they get these processed mayonnaise, like the Vegenaise, cheeses that are non-dairy, all kinds of items that have been processed. And processed foods are not good for us. They have preservatives in them, they have fillers in them, they have chemicals in them to create the effect of traditional products. So that could be one reason. The other reason could be that because protein is satiating and calms our appetite, they may be, instead of seeking out high quality forms of plant protein, things like legumes, beans, so black beans, pinto beans, red kidney beans, lentils, all of that stuff, quinoas, all of those things are packed with protein. So they take a little bit more effort to handle, and we are a grab and go society. So the things that they're going to grab, excuse me, that are plant-based may not actually be healthy. They'll be carbohydrates first and foremost. And carbohydrates, we only need a certain amount of them, and an excess of them will lead to weight gain. Excuse me. I have something to drink. Something. I inhaled one down the wrong. Okay. So we have this in here. I've only pulsed it so that it isn't super mushy. It's still got a lot of texture and chunks to it. I think actually I'm breathing in some of the walnut that got ground up there. I'm just going to grind it all so that I can mix panko in with this mixture and get it ready to form the burgers. As you can well, you might not be able to see, but it's still quite wet, and that's why if you have the time after you form your burgers to let it rest in the fridge, that's beneficial. We're going to try and just form them and let them rest a little bit while our French fries start to cook, and then put them in our pan right away. So we have that extra half a cup panko that I'm going to put in there. And at this point, I am going to, and I would suggest that you too, rinse my hands in cold water, and I am going to, you can put gloves on if you want this, if you don't want to handle this with your hands. I'm going to mix it up with my hands. And I'm going to let that rest there a little bit and let some of the panko get absorbed before I form my patties, because it is quite a wet mixture right now. And I'm going to give my coleslaw a little stir over here. If you want, you can put your slaw back in the fridge while you're doing the rest of the process here, so that it doesn't get too warm on you and it's nice and refreshing when you finish. I'm going to I'm going to put my French fries, which anytime you're using frozen fries, potato fries, take them right out of the freezer and put them in the oven. Don't leave them hanging around while you're doing something. They get too moist and they don't end up being crunchy and nice as you'd like them to be. You can cook as few or as many as you like. I'm going to do this whole bag, assuming that there are 3 or 4 people that are going to be eating. I'm going to spread it out on another pan I have here. It has a parchment, piece of parchment on it. You can put foil on it. If you have non-stick trays, you don't have to put anything on it. So I will take these. I'm going to check my oven to make sure, yes, it's actually at 425. Pop those in the oven. They're going to need almost 20 minutes to cook. So another thing that I'm a big proponent of is a kitchen timer. Timing is really important when you're cooking. So I'm going to put that on for 20 minutes so that it beeps and reminds us about those French fries in the oven. And also, I have a little bit of salt and pepper here, the remainder of the salt in the recipe, because I only put half of it in before. I'm going to shake this and put it into this mixture too before I form the patties. And I may even, you can be the judge of it at home. If it's too wet, you can always add some more panko breadcrumbs to it to make it a little bit easier to handle. I'm going to let that rest here again for a couple more minutes. It's absorbing, the panko is absorbing some of the liquid. If you were using a traditional breadcrumb, it wouldn't be doing that. And it'd just be part of the mixture. It wouldn't actually be absorbing liquid for you. So the panko helps keep everything together. So this is what I have here in the bowl. It's not really moving around very much. If yours is sliding around a lot in the bowl, then again, I would let it rest a couple more minutes. Decide for yourself whether you want to put a little bit more panko in it, or if you have the time, chill it a little bit, because that will help everything kind of come together and form the burgers after leaving it in the fridge for 5 minutes or so. So I'm going to switch out my saute pan for a bigger one. And for this, you could cook these on a griddle that you've sprayed non-stick on, or you put some olive oil on. If you didn't want to fry them, they won't have the same mouthfeel and texture. They won't mimic a burger, really. I'm putting about a quarter of a cup of olive oil in the bottom of this pan. For this cooking part, I like extra virgin olive oil for almost everything, but for the cooking, I'm using it for this cooking. But if you have olive oil and it's not extra virgin, it doesn't really matter for cooking, because you're not going to be eating it raw. It's going to be cooked and heated. Extra virgin olive oil really comes into play when you're doing dressings and things of that nature, where you're really going to taste the olive flavor, and you really want to have something a little bit nicer than basic olive oil. So I'm going to clear a little bit of this away. Cooking makes a lot of mess, so be prepared for that, but it's worth it in the end. I'm going to get my tray over here. So I form my patties. I put on the tray. You could use a plate, you could use a platter. You don't have to use a tray if you don't want to. And again, it helps to rinse your hands when you're forming these, so that the rice, it's very sticky. We did that on purpose. We wanted sticky rice, but now it's when it kind of works against you, because you're trying to form something. And so you're just going to make it into something the same way that you would handle beef. Make it into a patty. You can make them as big or small as you want. I say this recipe is for 8. Those are 8 smaller burgers. If you want something bigger, You can make them bigger. I don't know how many I'm gonna actually come out with this time, maybe 6. If you end up with the wrong number, you can always throw them all back in the bowl and start over again and recalculate size. You want to make sure that they're kind of tightly pushed together because, again, because we're not really going to rest them in the interest of time tonight, we're really not going to rest them in the fridge. They're going to be a little bit more delicate cooking without resting them. So we want to make sure that we're giving ourselves the best chance of success. So don't let them be loosey-goosey. Keep kind of pressing them into shape. Yeah, I'm actually only going to get maybe 5 in a bit because I'm doing them quite big. I'm making them look like a real beef burger.
Brigid, are there any negatives to a plant-based diet?
None that I know of. You asked about the protein. I don't think I really thoroughly answered you. You have to be really mindful about getting the right amount of protein. For someone like myself, you know, I'm a little over 50. I'm not, while I am athletic, I'm not kind of out there running 20 miles a week or anything like that. I need probably about 30 grams of protein a day. If you were really active and in your 30s as a woman, you probably need more like 60, 65 grams. Men need anywhere from 60 to 110, depending on the level of activity. So to get that protein, you have to really be conscious of it. You can't just eat kind of like most of us do lazily and assume that the wide variety of foods that we're consuming are going to get us to optimal health. So you really do have to focus on the beans, the nuts, seeds, peas. Just there, you can Google it and it'll tell you all the things that are great sources of protein, because you're going to eating the plants, you're going to get all the micronutrients you need, you're going to get all the antioxidants that you need, just for the sheer fact that you're eating fruits and vegetables. But in order to get the protein that's critical, our brains need protein, our bodies need protein. We can't live without it. We just like to learn how to live without the animal protein. It's a lot healthier for us in the end. So yeah, it's just being mindful. I drink nut milks almost every day in kind of a jar of nut milk that you could use to make your coffee with. Just drink it as it is, or soak it and make muesli and have cold soaked oats or something with it. You can get 9 to 11 grams of protein right there. Just, and I'm talking about a homemade nut milk, not one from the store, because they water them down and they don't put all that many nuts in. They're not giving you at least 5 to 6 grams of protein in a cup of whatever you're buying, then it's not a super high quality nut milk, and you'd probably be better off making a nut milk at home. But right there, I can get a quarter of what I need in a day just by substituting dairy milk with the nut milk. So I'm going to let the oil here heat up, and you want it to not be smoking, but be hot enough to crispy up the edges of your plant burger.
Brigid, we have a question.
Yes.
If you have more time, how long would you suggest to rest the mixture in the fridge before shaping the patties?
Well, if I had more time, I wouldn't rest the mixture in the fridge. What I do is form these patties and I put them in the fridge and I leave them there for an hour. That would be ideal. And that way, again, the liquid has more time to get absorbed by the panko breadcrumbs. It becomes more of a solid mass to work with. Or again, like I said, I could take these right now, and this is what I have to look at. I could put them right in the freezer and cook them later. You can defrost them in advance to cook them later if you can cook them from frozen. So once they're frozen, they're not going to fall right apart on you. And once they're refrigerated, they're gonna be much firmer, so.
What do you find is better, cooking them first and then freezing?
It depends on what your schedule is like. I think it really, if you're someone that has some time on a Sunday and likes to pre-prep things, I'd say make them all in advance and freeze them and take them out when you need them, or you can actually cook them after resting them for an hour and then freeze them that way. And if you're even in more of a hurry during the week, you can microwave them or heat those up in an oven for maybe 5 to 10 minutes in a 400 or 350 to 400 degree oven and get them up crunchy and revive them. It really depends on your lifestyle. I think if you're a homemaker, either male or female, it doesn't matter, and you like to cook, and cooking is part of your ritual and part of your family life, you know, you could get your family going and make it together and, you know, have a meal on the table by 6:30, but you'd have to start a little bit earlier. So it all depends on your lifestyle and how much time you have, but we're kind of trying to do the express version tonight so that we can get something on the table sooner as opposed to later. So my oil's getting there. Probably put something in there, and we have about 9 minutes left with our French fries. Be careful, there can be some splatter, just be careful that you don't get yourself burnt by the oil. Particularly if you're cooking from frozen, you're gonna have some ice crystals on the edges of the burgers. You're gonna want to be really careful and step back once you put the burgers in the pan. So I don't want to lose track of some other things. We still have our toppings, and we have buns to deal with. If you want a bun, you don't have to eat a bun, but we're going for the burger effect, so we're gonna have the bun. You can toast them if you want. I'm not gonna toast them tonight. I think that they're quite sturdy the way that they are, and I chose a multi-grain and a seeded version again for more flavor. I like more flavor. And the multi-grain is a little bit healthier than just a white burger bun. So we have these burgers now cooking. I'm gonna get some paper towels and get a place for the burgers to rest when they come out of the pan, because while it's great to have them crispied up and everything, we don't really want grease in our end product. And we're gonna let them cook for about 4 or 5 minutes aside. I'm not in your kitchen. I don't know what kind of cooktop you have. I don't know how hot or cold it runs. I don't know what your pans are like. So I can give you general instructions for me here. I'm actually using a new cooking device myself that I don't traditionally use, so that I can stand in front of you and talk to you. I would normally be cooking on my gas stove behind me. So even this new induction stovetop here, which I do use when I kind of hit the road and cook in other places besides in my own home, I'm not used to using it all the time, so I'm going to use a little common sense while I'm cooking things. I'm going to check the stuff more often. So I would say that while I'm giving you instructions here, you know, use your common sense at home. If you have cooked it for 3 minutes and it's already super brown and crunchy on the bottom side, flip it. I'm just doing on an average, it's going to be 4 to 6 minutes aside to make sure it's cooked through and to make sure it holds together and make sure it's crunchy. So while we're doing that, I think I'm going to quickly pop off the screen and rinse my hands in the sink, just so that I can plate stuff here without mushroom all over me. And I will get plate to do that. Like I said, I have these Dave's Killer Bread whole grain buns here. but you can use whatever you want. You can use Kaiser rolls, brioche, regular roll, seasoned hamburger buns. And you can toast them if you want. If the burgers are frozen and you prepare them in advance, you can also treat them like a regular burger. And if it's summertime, it happens to be winter here, no one wants to go outside and grill anything. You can put frozen burgers right on your barbecue and cook them like that. And again, use your common sense, but it's going to be about 4 or 5 minutes aside to cook. So, but yeah. To have our cheese handy. Slices of red onion there. Just have that waiting for. The French fries have about 5 more minutes. And again, I don't know your oven. This is my oven. Check them if they're done and the 5 minutes, the whole 20 minutes hasn't gone past. Take them out. Don't burn them just to meet recipe's time. All right, so these are cooking ice cream. And on that note, I'm going to check my fries to make sure that I don't have anything burning. They're looking pretty good. Still need a little bit longer. They're not quite crunchy. Some people like really soft fries. Some people like crunchy. And take them out when they're done to your satisfaction. So I've flipped one of my burgers. It's unfortunate I don't want to burn anyone with oil, but you might be able to see that it's quite brown. It looks like a grilled burger. And I'm going to go ahead and try and successfully flip the rest of them using my hand to kind of cushion the top of the burger because it's still quite soft. I'm trying to get all 4 of these flipped over. And I think you can see them from there, that they're all brown on the top. So we just have a little waiting to do. I don't know if anyone has any more questions while we're kind of hanging out here, waiting for the fries to finish and for these burgers to finish. It's probably going to be another 3 minutes or so.
Brigid, in the beginning, you spoke about people that might not like mushrooms and substitution. Will those substitutions really give it that burger flavor, like you mentioned peas and some of the other things?
No, what you'll do is you'll transform this from a plant-based beef burger substitute to a veggie burger, which is totally fine. You're still going to cook it in the same way, so it's going to get crunchy on the outside. It'll just be more of a veggie burger. And for a lot of people on a plant-based diet, that's great. I eat veggie burgers all the time. And as I said, this is the long route to get into the end game. You don't have time for all this one night, and maybe you only once a month can do everything from scratch. Go to your local store if you can, get something organic and just buy a veggie burger. Try something plant-based out of the freezer section and see how it goes. See how you like it. I happen to love Dr. Prager's burgers that I eat, in a pinch, probably 2 times. I throw it in the oven and I eat it because it's quick and fast, and I don't want to be grabbing those carbs and all those other unhealthy things because I don't have something really fast and simple in front of me. So really, I think we need to be kind with ourselves, be tolerant of kind of what our time constrictions are, and don't expect too much. I'm just showing you tonight what you can do if you want to do the long version and make sure that you're not getting preservatives in your food and that you have the freshest ingredients and you're in control of the ingredients that you're eating. But we all, have busy lifestyles, and the extent that you want to cut corners, like I said, with the cabbage mix and the French fries and what have you, you could make homemade French fries, but I don't know how many people have the time to do that in addition to making a homemade burger and taking care of all the other responsibilities that they have at nighttime. So I think our French fries should be almost done. Very close. And so are our burgers. In fact, that timer's probably going to go off in a second. There we go. So I'm going to I think I'll leave some of these other ones in here cooking just a little bit longer, but we're kind of out of time and we'll run a teeny bit over. Going to put cheese here to melt. Cheese on this to melt while it's standing. Rest while that's cooking. And we're going to put our burger on our bun. If you want ketchup, mayonnaise, whatever, I happen to like mayonnaise. I don't know what you ladies like. Mayonnaise?
Yeah.
And I'll get one of these ready for you guys to taste. This underneath tomato. And there's one final step that you can take if you want to. I didn't tonight because I want you guys to taste this fresh. I mean, there it is. It looks like a burger. Is you can brush some Worcestershire sauce on the burger after it cooks. It, again, just gives it one more added dimension of flavor. It's not necessary, but I'm all about the flavor, and particularly, like I said, when you're trying to transition from a more traditional American diet to something healthier, it can help to have all those extra flavors. So, okay. Put some fries on there. And I can't forget that we have our slaw here. It's nice and softened up now. And there you have it. Homemade slaw, French fries, and a beautiful plant-based burger to try. I'm going to share these with the ladies here and see what they think. Hopefully you have either learned something about plant-based cooking and you're going to try this recipe sometime later, or you followed along. But again, if you want the more extended version of this recipe that incorporates the brown rice and uses shiitake and some other things that that we kind of simplified for you tonight, you can feel free to email